Good evening. This is the December 18th, 2025 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The time is 6 o'clock. Our first order of business uh, is to convene into work session. We'll reconvene into the general session at 6:30. Right. We have a quorum. So should we start? Cammy, are we good to go? Okay. So item two, work session. We'll start with a roll call of the commission members present. I'm Edmund Haas, Chair of the Commission. Commission members, Vice Chair Sue Blankenship.
Present.
Ed Marr.
Present.
John Dobmeyer.
Present.
Cindy Bishop.
Absent.
Can't. Half of them.
Oh my
God. Over and over. No, I can't. I can.
Hey, today.
Yeah. Hey. All righty. So I'll turn it over to Matt Steer. Matt, you can introduce staff and then.
Thank you,
Run through the
Chairman
cases.
Haas. Tonight's staff members include myself, Matt Steer, Development Services Administrator, Louis Rahil, our Assistant Director of Community Development, and Cammie McGee, our Board Secretary. Bob Hager is going to be joining us online
I'm on.
virtually.
Okay, great.
Oh, did I just hear him?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Yes, sir.
All right. Would you like me to go through the cases here?
Sure.
Okay.
Fire away.
So we've got our first case of the evening is the mansions at what is it called? It is the Mansions by the Lake. And so what they're wanting to do is convert part of the second story of the clubhouse into a residential unit. And it's about a quarter of the building that they're converting. It's got its access from an exterior door. It has a balcony that overlooks the pool. It looks like a really nice setup, what they've done. And then they're rearranging the clubhouse area within the building. But
So the apartment intended for, is that like the community manager or something?
they haven't said that, but that'd be a good question for the applicant. You know, if say it was, yeah,
Is it intended for management or is it intended for lease?
I think it's intended for lease.
That's what I was.
But you could lease it to the manager at a discount rate.
Right. It is a 1-bedroom unit. It's about 1,132 square feet. So it's a large one about, yeah. You know, I say that because I don't want to give you guys the inches. But anyway, so any
Seems
questions
like
on that case?
Seems like an
Looks
odd.
like a nice design. Looks like a great
Well,
design.
Why would you? Well, it just seems odd.
Well,
Saying
And
why
then there's some facade updates too and.
yeah, so they're wrapping they have these Corinthian columns out in front of their clubhouse, and so they're revising those to kind of modernize them, wrapping them with wood cladding, and then they're removing a balustrade that's at the top of the columns, so it doesn't look so Romanesque, I guess. That's my art history coming through, or architecture history coming through. Oh, is it? Yeah, okay. So any other questions on this one? It's pretty straightforward. The next one is Lost Creek Live Work. So this was a development of 5-unit development approved at the northern end of Old Town for Live Work. And so the comprehensive master plan shows commercial mixed use infill as appropriate for this property. It was previously zoned for, conceptually zoned for an office. And so when he came forward and rezoned it for this Live Work, or first, they came forward, several people came forward and asked for residential for this property. We said, no, we can't do residential fronting Coppell Road. Needs to be mixed use or Live Work. And so how we landed on Live Work was the intensity of Live Work is less intense than a mixed use, right? So you would have the same person that owns a unit upstairs work in the unit. So they wouldn't have to have that extra 2 cars for that unit, right? Because they'd work there. So that's how we got live work as kind of a trend along that portion of Coppell Road. And so we had 4 other units develop over the years. And he came in with 10 units. And so he came back and amended that and added, well, originally it was approved for, like I said, an office. And then Chris Collins came and got a live work for 1 medical office, and the remainder of them could be office on the first floor. They would, of course, be residential on the second floor. Then he came back and said, I need other options. So we added retail as another use that would be allowed within that first floor. And he reduced the size of the allowable business area to 800 square feet for the retail in order to meet the parking requirements. So this time he came back, he said, I still can't get anyone to buy them. So I'm coming back asking for residential, and we've let him know that we can't support it. But we would bring him through the process and hold his hand and get him in front of the right people. So
Right, people?
you are the right people. So so we send out letters to
Maybe
surrounding
not.
property owners. And he did get, he went door knocking this afternoon, and he's got two people in favor within the 200 linear feet from this property. And then he's got a number in favor that are outside that 200 feet. And I'll go through those.
Anyone opposed?
There was a letter of opposition from Jack Ronda Gift Shop. That's Sarah Carrick. And it's outlined in the handout that I gave you. It's pages 3 through 5 of that handout. And she made some good points, you know. And then the other handout that I've given you is the Old Town concept plan. So the 11 by 17 sheet shows this property right here, up towards the northern boundary of Old Town, shows it in red. And if you look in the legend, it says commercial mixed use infill. And then on the next page, this is the optimal ground floor land use plan, which is unique to Old Town because we're regulating the first floor, right? And it says that mixed use office concentration would be appropriate for this area. So that's why he came in, he got office approved on the first floor. So
Well, I know that you have recommended denial, so I'm just wondering how you actually feel about it.
I don't think that we want to see residential fronting on Coppell Road at this particular section. And I think that we've been consistent in our recommendation as people coming in and asking what this property could be used for. We've been consistent over the years since 2003, saying mixed use with commercial or mixed use or commercial mixed use infill.
Did he do a traffic impact study for residential and anything like that?
It would be less intense for the residential
Yeah.
as opposed to.
Well, it feels like if you allow this, isn't there a handful of properties
It's gonna-
a hop skip over that are gonna immediately want to say, oh, I want to be residential too, and I want to be residential too, and because I think there's a house, at least one house over there that sold with the stipulation that it had to remain retail or no, just retail. I think it's just retail.
Well, there was a house that just sold. I think that if it's modified, it has to go to retail or to this live work concept. But if they can live there until.
But I remember when the house was listed, the realtor said, you may not use this as a residence.
Okay, so that might be a different property than.
Yeah,
The
I'm
one
talking about the little places.
Yeah.
If you
right.
go,
Okay.
Realtors don't always tell the truth either.
yeah, I'm talking about, so there's the other live work.
Yeah,
I'm talking about these three
Mhm.
and even this one up here.
Yeah, there's a couple of those that.
This is the one that sold a while back and they said, you can't, you can't have that as a residence. But it's a
Right.
house. So it's
Okay.
a little house. I
Yeah.
just wonder if you approve this, are you gonna open the door to this guy, this guy, this guy, this
Yeah.
guy, and this guy all
No,
to make
no,
the
now
same thing?
this would be unique to this property, but they would have that in their argument or
Yeah.
in their back pocket to say, hey, you've already allowed it or whatnot. So
I would contend he might do a better job selling these things if they weren't so cotton picking ugly. It's huge. And it looks like it's 3 stories too. I don't know if that was originally in the original approval either.
no, it's 2 stories. Yeah.
Yeah, it just has a stone frontage on it.
Yeah. So
It goes in the front too, though.
when
No, we got what place one.
the thing is I remember on the south end of Old Town when when the Darling homes were being developed.
Mhm.
And the first one went up, I was like, uh-oh, what do we do? But then they all came together. So it's just one that looks out of place because it's not surrounded by the 5 others.
Yeah, okay.
So I guarantee it won't look so massive when you have all the others right adjacent to it.
And it's 5 lots, right?
Yeah. Any other questions on this case? I'll go through the same stuff out in the big room.
Okay, any other questions on the cases? Matt, do you want to go ahead and go over the,
Natera was approved. So we brought it forward with your recommendation and they council approved it.
Oh, they
So,
did.
what was the vote on that?
it was unanimous. Yep. And so I drafted the ordinance today, and so hopefully we can get that on the January 13th council agenda.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah.
I went out and bought that baby. Lotion.
Oh, you did?
It's not so.
Well, they're a good company. They're great for our community.
Okay, anything else? Anything we need to be alerted to for, let's see, we're off January.
Right.
So February, anything coming down the pipe that we need to be thinking about?
No, we're trying to put the finishing touches on the RFQ for the comprehensive master plan. And we were hoping to get that out by the end of the year. So we're still pushing for that, but it might be early next year by the time it gets out.
No, do what other cities are doing. Get it out next week, just before Christmas, and have it due January 5th. All right.
Right, yeah.
No concrete plants going down the pipe anytime soon.
No,
But we having a meeting in January or no?
no.
Okay. And then, okay, so that's the comp plan. And then any advanced scheduling on when we might have a joint meeting with council?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that right now, but yeah, we can put.
I know we've got
feelers
a
out.
summerish time before, and so.
Okay.
But when do you expect we'll be tackling the comp plan?
Well, so it's gonna be an 18-month process once we get the RFQ out. So
18 months to get a report.
to get,
There's a lot of public engagement.
yeah, to get it approved through
What's gonna be,
council.
how much role are we gonna have?
You guys will have a big role in it, well, there will be a member of this committee on the board or on the steering committee. So, we're gonna get someone from the Ford Task Force, Smart City, Planning and Zoning Commission, and then various other, probably,
Ultimately have to approve it too, right?
yeah, ultimately, yeah. So it's 18 months.
We'll have to approve it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it'll come through you guys.
Well, that'd be exciting.
So 18 months is when council hears it, so back it up, so it's 16 months.
It's 18 months after the RFQ goes
Technical
out.
work, okay.
Yeah, after the award, it's been awarded, so.
And TP, okay.
And we've gone with an RFQ because we might get a consultant that says, hey, have you guys thought about this? You might want to do this.
Mhm.
And so we don't know what we don't know, right? So.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Relates to the agenda? Okay. Then I'll adjourn our work session. The time is 6:16. Phew. Okay, the time is 6:30 and the Planning and Zoning Commission is convening into our regular session. Our first item on the agenda is citizens appearance. Cammie, is anybody signed up for citizen appearance? Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 5 on the agenda is the approval of our November 20th meeting, the meeting minutes. Is there any discussion or comments or motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the minutes of November 20th, 2025, as written.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mar. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Commissioner Hafman. Cammie, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Dobmeyer,
I,
Vice Chair Blankenship,
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay. Item 6 on the agenda is a public hearing to consider approval of PD-160R2-MF-2, that being the mansions by the Lake Lot 1, Block 1, Lakeside Apartments, a zoning change request from Plan Development 160 Revised Multifamily 2 to Plan Development 160 Revised 2 Multifamily 2 to convert 1,254 square feet of the second floor of the clubhouse building to a residential unit on 34.75 acres of property located on the east side of North Coppell Road, approximately 967 feet north of Parkway Boulevard, at the request of Star Lakeside, being represented by Haley Schnetzer of IRT Legal Department. We have a staff presentation by Mr. Matthew Steer. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. This is item number 6 this evening. It is a public hearing. I'll walk you through a little history on the case. So the property has a multifamily development on it, and the clubhouse is shown in red. The original plan development was approved by City Council in July 1997, and an amendment to allow a daycare facility in the clubhouse was approved in April 1998, and that daycare is no longer in existence. So this is a request to convert 1,132 square feet of the second floor of the clubhouse building into a residential apartment. There are other modifications to the clubhouse layout and amenities that are being done that don't require zoning action. The remainder of the multifamily units are not being modified, and the total unit count in the apartment complex changed from 315 to 316 units. They're still meeting the parking requirements. They're providing 893 parking spaces. None of that is changing with this proposal. Here's the existing second floor plan. The applicant's proposing to convert an event room and 2 small restrooms and into a 1-bedroom apartment on the second floor, or on a portion of the second floor. And here's the proposed space for the apartment unit. The apartment unit construction will incorporate fire separation modifications between the apartment unit and the other clubhouse spaces as required by the building code. Entrance to the unit will be directly from the exterior via an existing balcony and stairway right here, without the need to pass through the other clubhouse spaces. The apartment will consist of a large living room and / dining room, a kitchen, foyer, 1 bedroom, a bathroom, and a closet. No enlargement of the building area is part of this proposed scope. Exterior changes to the building are limited to new cosmetic wood wrap over existing exterior columns at the front entry and removal of a rooftop decorative balustrade. We sent out 46 notices surrounding property owners within 200 feet and 209 courtesy notices within 800 feet, and received no response either in favor or opposition. We did get a few calls by the residents just asking what was going on, but they didn't have any opinion either way. Staff is recommending approval of the request with the following condition: that there will be additional comments during the detailed building permit review. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is in the audience if you have any questions of her.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions of staff by the commission?
yeah, I have one, Matt. If if this is approved, does this approval effectively remove the approval of the daycare in the same building?
It does not.
Staff have any concern of residential in a building with a daycare?
There is no daycare there.
Okay, just making sure. You mentioned it was previously approved that way.
It was previously approved for a daycare. That's been vacated and they did some renovations and they're even renovating that space.
Any other questions? Okay, is the applicant here to present the case? If I could get your name and address for the record?
Sure. Haley Schnetzer of IRT Living, 1835 Market Street, Suite 2601, Philadelphia, PA 19103.
Any comments you'd like to add to the application?
No, Mr. Chair, I think Matt did a great job, so thank you.
Is the unit going to be for management or is it for general lease or
No, for general lease, anyone can apply for the unit.
it's a special unit over the clubhouse?
I know, but yeah, it's
Okay.
available to anyone who wants to apply.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant by the commission? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any final discussion by the commission? Is there a motion by the commission?
Well, I'll go at this, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve Mansions by the Lake, Lot 1, Block 1, Lakeside Apartments, a zoning change request from PD 160R MF 2, Plan Development, to a PD 160R2 MF2, Plan Development 160 Revision 2, Multifamily, to allow conversion of a 1,254 square foot space on the second floor of the clubhouse to residential unit, subject to staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hafman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Moore. Cammy, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nice. I call your name, Commissioner Dobbmeyer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Blankenship,
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer
Aye.
and Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Best of luck. Item 7 on the agenda is a public hearing. This is to consider approval of PD 213R8 H Lost Creek Live Work Edition. This is lots 1 through 5 and 6X, Block A. Zoning change request from Plan Development number 213, Revision 7, Historic, to Plan Development 213, Revision number 8, Historic, to revise the detailed site plan for 5 two-story live-work buildings, allowing for a single-family residential use for each unit, in addition to the live-work use on 0.71 acres of property located on the northeast corner of South Coppell Road and Heath Lane. This says at the request of Chris Collins and being represented by Greg Franca of GPF Architects. We have a staff presentation by Mr. Matt Steer. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is item number 7. It is also a public hearing. So a little bit of history on this case. In 2021, council approved this development, which allowed for the construction of 5 speculative live-work units and 1 common area parking lot. That took what was previously approved as a conceptual office space and they approved it for this development. Then in November 2023, council approved a revision to this plan development, allowed for building modifications and adding retail as an appropriate use for a portion of the first floor of each of the units. The existing zoning allows live work, professional office, or retail on the first floor, and 1 unit can be a medical office on the first floor, and on the second floor, a residential use for the employer or owner of the business. In addition to allowing the live work uses, the current request is to allow each unit to consist solely of a standard single-family residential use on both the upper and lower floors. So it would just be a single-family residential use. That's the north unit is the one that's already been constructed. That's the one that's showing up here. So the 2030 comprehensive master plan shows this property as appropriate for commercial mixed-use infill. Live work units have consistently been allowed to fulfill this requirement. And these consist of a business on the first floor and the owner or employee of the business to occupy the residence on the second floor. For this reason, staff is unable to support the proposed zoning change to allow residential homes fronting on this portion of South Coppell Road. In addition to this, staff is in opposition because we have consistently told developers that these will not, or we cannot support straight residential for properties that front directly on Coppell Road. We sent out 34 letters within 200 feet, and we've received the packet of information that I handed out in work session. It shows one of the two letters in favor within that 200 feet. There's 557 Mobley Way, and then there's one that I just got at 5:20 p.m. tonight at 553 Mobley Way. That's also in favor of it. Then within 800 feet, we sent out 101 letters. We received one in opposition. That's pages 3 through 5 of your packet. And then one in favor, and that's page number 2 of your packet. Then outside of the 800 feet, just within the city in general, we received 2 in favor, and those are pages 6 and 7 of your packet. So that being said, staff is recommending denial of PD 213 R8-H. If the recommendation is for approval, staff would like to add the following PD condition is that the applicant submit amended HOA documents for city attorney review prior to new building permits. And that concludes my presentation. I'm sure the applicant's, he's in the audience, and I'm sure he's got a presentation as well.
Okay, very good. Quick question about the historic plan. So the historic plan's been in place since roughly '02, somewhere in there?
2003, I believe. Yeah.
'03. And over the years, there's been some minor amendments to it to allow some of the things that have gone on, but basically
course.
the concept of the historic has remained intact all these years.
Correct. Yes, it has been modified and morphed over the years into different boundaries and different things approved.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Any questions of staff by the commission?
Is there any other residential only properties on South Coppell Road in the area?
I believe there are. Yes, there are some existing residential properties, but nothing that's been developed within the district that I can think of that's been a straight residential development on that portion of Coppell Road.
And of those that are existing, are they in a zoned residential or are they in non-conforming use?
So there's a couple, which I think Chris is going to bring up, that they were existing residential, and they were rezoned for a development to occur, to a mixed-use development that would have, I think it was an architect's office and then their residence on the second floor. And that never came about. So the property reverted their zoning back to what it was before. So they essentially removed the PD by adopting another PD. And so, and we approved that, we recommended that, and that's different than this case because it was going from residential to mixed use back to residential. This one was slated for conceptual office, then that changed to live work, right?
Okay. Have there been any administrative approvals outside of the P and Z with regards to the historic district, whether it's land, individual sites or something, anything that have changed land use wise that we didn't see?
I can't think of anything offhand that was significant.
All righty. Okay, with that, we'll go to the applicant. You don't look like Mr. Franca, but
You know,
he's not as good looking.
I'm not going to tell him that. I'm sure he's watching though.
If I could
Good
get your
evening.
name and address for the record, please.
My name is Chris Collins. I live at 217 Glenwood here in Coppell and have been a resident of Coppell for over 22 years. I originally brought this project before planning and zoning with quite a bit of opposition. For those of you that weren't here at that time, it was an interesting evening. During the course of that, we made several concessions to meet with the neighbors and work out our differences and how we could move forward. At that time, I lived at 564 South Coppell Road, which is one of the 3 live works south of this project. So I would sit out in my office, I would see this piece of land and say we could do it better. I believed in Old Town and we made an investment to move this forward. We sat down with our neighbors when we had the first opposition. We negotiated, we came up with strategies. We added to the plan development several issues that were huge, such as screening over the neighbors because of the height of the building. The density was a very large issue. We talked about that. We had asked for several abatements to easements and such, and came up with a plan that ultimately came back with those that were in opposition in support of the plan. It was working together to get this done. We had high hopes at the time we went under this project. We had 4 of the 5 buildings committed to be purchased. We had this whole thing called the economic crash hit right after we started this project. We've run into some hurdles that we've been able to cross, but we've run into several that we just can't. So one of the things I'd like to do is just start at the corner of Bethel and South Coppell Road. As you know, I've been here before you guys on another project on the north side of Bethel and Maine. And so just coming back to where we were, starting just kind of a walk down South Coppell Road headed north from Bethel. We have the Jacaranda, which is, it's 456 West Bethel. And this is one of the areas that was concerned to me as this has proceeded over the last couple of years. This building is not painted in the same color as the Old Town overlay and the color palette that's prescribed. When I confronted, hey, why is this? It was an administrative decision to allow it to be painted green, which is not in the color palette. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So then we move over. We have Joe Shirley's barbershop is next door. And for those of you that don't know, Mr. Shirley has recently passed this last week. And that was a hard hit for Coppell. Great guy. Moving north from Joe, we have the old, I don't know exactly what they were. They were city buildings. They were, those addresses were 616 South Coppell Road. Those are 1-story brick buildings that are offices. As some of you know, or if you don't know, I'm a realtor in the community. I've been here for 17 years as an agent. These buildings have come and gone for rent and have not been able to maintain a tenant since the new owner purchased them. Moving north from there, we have 572 South Coppell Road, which is a florist. It's one of the building is quite old. She has a garden in the back. She cuts flowers and makes flower arrangements. Not open to the public, but a business nonetheless. The next one is the first time that is coming into the subdivision that I lived in, and that would be 568 South Coppell Road. It is Zen Yoga Studio is what was originally came in there. The first floor is a big open floor plan with a restroom and an office in the back. These were my neighbors for 3 years, and they struggled post-COVID to launch that. That building is currently being used as a meeting hall, an assembly hall. They have it for lease for events and such. I believe the parking count for the square footage they have is substantially higher than the professional office or office that it was originally zoned for. So this is once again something that's not in compliance with where we started. The second building north of that is 566 South Coppell Road. Once again, this was one of my neighbors for several years. That building became available for sale this past year. There is a veterinarian in Old Town that sits right next to George's Coffee Shop. She's reached out to me about our project at 560 South Coppell Road and what it would look like to get her into one of our buildings. It just wasn't economically feasible for her. However, she did come back and look at this building at 566 South Coppell Road to put her veterinarian clinic. Now, it's not a traditional clinic. She rehabs animals. She's not there full time. She's on a horse farm full time. This is one of her side businesses. Her struggle with her business being located next to George's Coffee Shop is simply this. She can't get her clients parked in front of her building to bring their animals in. The parking can't be reserved in Old Town. It's all public parking. So these are the dialogues I've had with her as we were looking at moving her north of Bethel onto one of these live works. However, it's my understanding, I was not a part of this conversation, that because it was a medical building, she would overpark with a medical type facility in that live work, given what was allotted for parking in that PD. And so that property did change hands this year recently. I met with the current owners asking what type of business they were going to have. And they simply said, we just bought it to live here. We have no intentions of having a business here. And so I told them it might be a good idea to call their realtor. Moving north from there is my old building, 564 South Coppell Road. As you know, I ran my Keller Williams out of that office. And when I sold it to the attorney that bought it, he had presented that he was going to be putting his law firm in there. Instead, he moved his two kids in, his daughter and her family, and they've lived there as a single family residence ever since. So moving north, you run into our project. And then we go north of my project. We have the strip. I don't know what to call it. It's a metal building that is for rent in small compartments. Several of our local businesses rent from that facility. They've been great neighbors to us on our project at 560. North of that, we run into what would be 544 South Coppell Road. It's a live work. It was built and developed by Greg Frank and Mr. Robinson. That live work has expanded into the garage. As you know, if you were part of the process with our development at 560 South Coppell Road, we specifically address the non-use of the garage for business use, but it's also regulated under the master building code for live work to not exceed 3,000 square feet. And so it's my understanding that the garage has been converted and is being used for business space. It's heated and air conditioned. Moving north of that is 540 South Coppell Road, which would be a chiropractor that we're quite familiar with. And like Matt said, there's two types of zoning, and Matt and I've had a very clear understanding of what we expected with that. You know, live work, the easiest way to explain it, both as a realtor and developer to potential buyers, is the intention of the zoning is to have one owner and dual occupancy, meaning you would have a residence and a business, but only one owner. As you go south into Old Town, most of those developments, such as Let It Shine, and several Georges, those are actually mixed use, which allows for dual ownership and dual use, i.e. you could have a second floor that has a different owner or tenant than the first floor. And so the fact that when the chiropractor moved to Colorado, he decided he was going to rent out his unit. That would, in my opinion, be a conflict. Understand that the city attorney and Matt visited about that, and they were given an administrative leniency, and it's now rented out. Moving up from there northbound, we hit 536 South Coppell Road. This is not being used as a business and is not open to the public. I met with them today. The 532 South Coppell Road, however, it's Jean Murph's old building. She used it for the Coppell Gazette or one of the newspapers. It is currently for rent as a commercial building. And they've added to the back, they've built a garage. So that's for rent currently. And then we run into 528 South Coppell Road, and that is being used as a residence. As Matt said, I was going to bring up a zoning change that incorporated 528 through 532 South Coppell Road. And in September of 2021, it was approved to go from a plan development, which was a commercial plan development, to a residential. Like Matt stated previously, it was residential. The plan development was approved under the guidelines of the master plan that it would be commercial. And then it was zoned back as late as 2021 to residential, which was its previous use. At this time, it's zoned residential. However, unit 532 is for rent as a commercial building. So during my tenure of working on these projects, both this and the Bethel Main project, I've seen an inconsistency that's made it difficult to market the properties that we do have. Some of those inconsistencies are someone wanting to purchase one of our live works, rent out one side, whether it's the residence or whether it's a business, and use the other for their own. As a realtor, knowing what the rules are, that won't work. Meet with the city. And it's never been something that would work. We've had businesses that would not be open to the public interested in purchasing these buildings. And when they have met with the city, there's been this comment that they need to be open to the public. And that, as we challenge that, Matt and I, we've had several conversations over this topic, over why can't someone purchase this building, live there? One of the potential buyers that we had specifically had to have a standalone office in his home for his employment, and he flew. But since he wasn't open to the public, what the determination by staff was that that's a home-based business and won't fit in our live work model. And so we're trying to come up with a way to sell these. Nobody likes the vacant lot sitting there, but we have spent 3 years now trying to work this out. At one point, I drew a set of plans for a finish out of the building that you see, that we call that Unit E, in which there was a first floor kitchen, a first floor office, and a large open area. 3 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, upstairs, 2 bathrooms. And when I met with Matt on this specific floor plan to make sure that this would be something that if we built it as a spec, that we could get approved, there was concern that it looked like a single family home, and that wouldn't work. Where's the conference room? Where's this? Where's that? And so I just asked Matt, why are we being discriminated against? Because this is the exact same floor plan that I lived in personally at 564 South Coppell Road. So 1/3 of the live works in Coppell have that exact same floor plan. So it's been a struggle to get past that to get these sold. I catch a lot of flack, as you can imagine, from the neighborhood. It's an incomplete project. Several people have asked, why didn't you build all 5 buildings? We've built one. It was under contract to be sold. We started and have building permits for all 4 buildings, but the contract fell through. And the subsequent 3 contracts fell through for similar situations like this. We have met with the city. We've worked on, we had a bakery, 2 cool kids baking sourdough products in their garage, and they couldn't take their business to the next level without a commercial location. This city health department chimed in. We were trying to be creative on how we can do this, what kind of grease trap would work, what will fit. And at the end of the day, the economics didn't work. And so that fell through. So we've tried, both city and myself, to come up with a way to move this building and complete this subdivision. The first attempt to consider doing something different was to change it to mixed use. So met with the city, we had a meeting about what that would look like. We came up with ways that we could convert, since none of the buildings are currently occupied and the building E is not finished, that we could go rezone to mixed use, which would then allow us the dual tenants, dual use. The problem with that was the economics behind it raised the price over $75,000 per lot to add the additional water that would be required. The construction of the buildings would increase by $50,000 to $75,000 because now we're looking at a commercial sprinkler system. We're looking at a water vault and a riser room in each building, as well as the first and second floor have to have a firewall. So economically, it just was not going to work, because then these buildings are going to be $1.5 million for 3,000 square feet. The economics aren't there. And so as we've looked at what else there is to do, we would love to have any feedback. There is a stipulation that's not on here that we would be doing as a developer. And that is that if anyone purchased one as a residential, it's my understanding that they won't be required, it's 3,000 square feet, to have a fire suppression system. However, in the future, if someone wanted to convert one of these that is a residence to a live work, they would have to install one. So we just decided it'd be easier, no matter what we build, we're going to put the fire suppression system in from the base, so that if it ends up being a primary residence, one, they have the fire suppression for safety, and two, for resale in the future, it's not an expense they would have to carry. So I don't believe we're asking for too much. I believe as the realtor who has been taking all the phone calls since this project started, we are still getting phone calls for businesses that are looking to coming. As you know, the other development that I was involved in, we didn't move forward with it. It just ended up not being economically feasible. After going through all we did to get that project approved, the landowner decided he wanted an extra $250,000. Sorry, it's not going to work. The economics of downtown and Old Town have been difficult to sell to investors because of the turnover in the businesses that are down there. So we're here today saying, please give us a chance to complete this. My initial pass at this was to convert it to residential. As Matt and I talked about why the mixed use wouldn't work, Matt's suggestion to me was, let's leave it live work. Let's leave the live work commercial zoning. Let's leave the professional office. Let's leave the medical office. Let's leave the retail alone and just add residential use. We're not prohibiting the commercial use by changing the zoning that way. We just need to open it up. What if this is somebody that just wants to live there, who flies out of DFW and needs to have a standalone office in their home because that's what their employer requires, or a home-based business that's not open to the public that is looking for this type of product? It's so restrictive under the current interpretation of what is supposed to be there that we've not been able to move forward. I am open to any suggestions that you guys might have to how we can make Coppell better and close this project out. I know that in our charter, the city charter dictates that the highest and best use of a property will dictate its use. And as we've watched things over the last 3 to 5 years, things have been changing. And I am not a proponent for high density, but there's people that think it belongs here. I don't believe that this project being north of Bethel, with the master plan and some of the things that the mayor and I've talked about, the future of Old Town in the next 10 to 20 years, I don't believe that we're going to hurt anything by adding the residential component.
Mr. Chairman.
That's it.
So you're requesting approval of.
Exactly.
Thank you for your presentation, sir. So I've got several questions on this. I mean, of course, we all empathize with the economic troubles that the site's having. And we recognize that holding property for 3 years is certainly not desirable, that's for sure. And appreciate all your efforts with staff to try to figure out how to make this thing go. I guess there's some concern with staff that having residential on the Coppell Road is, is concerning as a precedent, and it violates, zoning regs. So given that, I'm just kind of thinking out of the box here a little bit. Have you considered flipping your site design?
I'm sorry,
Flipping your site design so that you could put residential in there, but having the access to the residential coming
from the rear.
From the rear, right?
So currently, the way this project was designed, there is public parking in the front. In the rear, behind the buildings, there's a 25-foot fire lane that runs from Heath. This is the entry point for all 5 of the buildings. It comes in from behind. Behind each building, there is,
But the buildings don't front there, they front on Bethel.
they front South Coppell,
Not
yes, sir.
South Coppell,
But
excuse
they're
me.
entered from the rear.
They're entered from the rear, but they're presented like a commercial space. So my question is, have you considered flipping that and flipping the approach and putting the frontage of the building off of this driveway that you've got? And then creating maybe a small yard.
We
with a
understand,
fence.
I understand the question. Several of the problems is it would look extremely awkward when you walk down South Coppell Road for the back door to be on South Coppell Road. Most of these types of dwellings, whether it is in a residential subdivision or you can imagine a residential subdivision where you have rear entry garages. These have 2 spaces inside the garage, 2 spaces behind the garage, and 1 space beside the property. So there's 5 parking places on the back. We have considered and have offered, there are, I think, 11 parking places at the north end of the fire lane. If they were residential, those 11, we don't want to volunteer them up because they're part of our parking count. We were very specific in how we did that. But the homeowners association, which we call Lot 6, owns the property at the back of the buildings because of the way the lot is shaped. There's a large grassy area that we would consider fencing, having grills, patio, et cetera, for the residential. The one thing that we were prohibited in our first PD was the swimming pool. I don't see one being back there anyway. As for what is going on South Coppell Road, from the time you cross over the creek, when you start hitting the first 3 units that Jason Rose and Mark Haas built, the one that I lived in, the parking and the approach was in the rear. They all faced Coppell Road. All 3 of those buildings do that. 2 of the 3 buildings are being used for primary residences. The parking lot is where most of the activity. The reason I built patios on these is because I wanted to smoke a cigar, drink my whiskey, and have a fire pit, and I had to do it in the fire lane. There wasn't a place for it at 564. All of that is built into these units. They have a side yard and an upstairs patio that's enclosed and covered so that you can have your private space outside. There's also a large common area that's part of the homeowners association. So if you keep going north from our project, both of those live works enter from the rear, have front parking and front doors. And as you keep going north and you get into the older buildings that were there before us, they're all facing South Coppell Road. Most of them have parking in the front. So I think one of them has
Correct
parking.
me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that would change the request.
That's right, yeah. So to answer your question, Kent, we wanted support residential facing to the east in this particular case, because you would take up the valuable property that's fronting on Coppell Road, with the back of the units on Coppell Road. So that wouldn't make sense logistically.
I would also add to that, that I still personally believe in the live work concept. And so to change their direction would then rule out them ever being live works because they're not facing South Coppell Road.
Just trying to think outside the box here.
Hey, trust me, I've spent many hours trying to figure this one out.
Any other questions yet? Sure.
My question isn't for you, Chris. It's for Matt. Could you please explain the difference to me, for a home-based business versus a live-work unit? What's the definition that,
Well, so a live work unit would have foot traffic, would generate people coming to and from the business. And a home-based business, you're not allowed to have that foot traffic. So in single family districts, we do allow for home-based businesses. Make sense?
and is that a definition that the city of Coppell has? I
Uh,
mean, you're
y-
summarizing,
Yeah,
I'm
I
assuming.
believe so, yeah.
Matt and I are in agreement. That's a definition.
Okay.
We're not arguing about that. We're trying to figure out, how do we redefine that? If it was redefined, I know that at least 3 of these buildings would have already been sold. So people, when they say, hey, what do you mean? I thought a live work, I could live there and work from there. But then this having to be open to the public because the master plan says Old Town's going to have all this foot traffic and everybody's going to be walking down to bars and having a good old time. And it just hasn't happened.
Right. It feels like these buildings are just a little too far away from the epicenter of actual Old Town where all that activity is to make that viable.
I don't know that these buildings would fit in Old Town. I think that the plan of having the mixed use, this live work concept was to transition from the commercial residential above, like Shops of Legacy or South Lake or any of those, into these residential areas and to be a transition type buffer. Unfortunately, the economic change that we've seen in the last 4 years since I started this project has priced people out of it. But in Coppell, the idea that you could buy a brand new 3,000 square foot home that you got to finish yourself for less than $1 million, there's a high desire for that product, as we've seen even with what we used to coin the phrase, the Speedy K houses. They're all sold now, guys. But, there is that demand. I still believe that the live work, even if this residential component was added, that we would see several of these, if not more than half of them, be live work. That's a stipulation that we would be willing to accept. We've been willing to work with any of these that make economic sense. And so if there's a way to do residential on 3 of 5 or 2 of 5, anything to just get the ball rolling.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant by the commission? Okay. We may come back to you for other questions. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak for or against the proposed application? Made it all the way out here. Why not, right?
My name is Michael Elliott. I live at 542 Mobley Way Court in the old Coppell Townhomes, which is just a few houses down from this proposed development. Some of my neighbors, we talked today because I know some of them got the notice late, but we're not opposed to having the residential built. I mean, those lots are sitting there vacant. The comments you made about thinking outside the box, it would be hideous to see the rear of those buildings facing South Coppell Road. As we approach going up north to turning to Old Coppell where we lived for 20 years, we already see the commercial building right there and we got Robertson's across the way. Of course, theirs is all blocked up and nice frontage, but it'd look hideous to see a back of those homes facing South Coppell Road. But those have been sitting there for quite a while vacant. Would like to see something done. The work live, as he explained, Matt knows the issues we had with the chiropractor that was down at the end and leased that thing out. He was a real problem for us in our development of our HOA when he had, 15 or 20 people in a class teaching chiropractic out back, and they parked in all of our spaces. On a weekend holiday on Saturday, we couldn't even have our family park out there, because they had no place to park. Anyway, that's hopefully been resolved, but we'd like to see something done down there. It is a shame that more people haven't taken advantage of Old Town like it has been. We only have the hamburger place down there. It'd be nice to see something. My wife and I are appreciative of the farmer's market and going down there, on the weekends, and it draws a big crowd. We thought that when that was built, that it would have a bigger draw than it did. So, and I'm sure everybody's in the same agreement with that. But, Chris has made some good points that, I think they would sell, but we don't want to see 1,000 cars out there either. And if it was a residential only that someone bought and lived there, there needs to be some stipulation that you can't move 20 people in there to live there. Move the whole family in. So that gets quite difficult. And he did make some concessions when they got those lots with the city and the parking out front, which is better, a little bit better than the parking in front of where the chiropractor only had like 4 or 5 spaces. It's very difficult for us to pull out of Old Town or our HOA and look back north and see those cars coming, because cars still block if they park there, and you take a chance pulling out there sometime and getting hit. So it's a little dangerous, but thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Last Chance Cafe. No, don't want to do it? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion by the commission. I do have a question of Matt. So kind of some trending here. If we were to allow the home base work, right, home base? What if we were to allow that? Leave the work live and allow the home base, but with the stipulation that it still can be converted to the true work live.
Yeah, those options are on the table. Yeah, this is the first time that I've heard of, deviating from straight residential and just limiting it to maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of the units. That wasn't ever presented to us. So, if we could go back and meet with the applicant and try and figure something out, a compromise that, if you guys are leaning in that direction, then I would recommend that.
Well, let me finish my thought. I'm a little sensitive. A lot of time and effort, aside from the marketing element that you're working with, a lot of time and effort went into the vision of the historic district. And if we start tinkering here and there, we start creating, well, they did it over here, why can't they do it over there? We start deconstructing the vision of what we were doing. Now, is the old historic plan, is it tired? Not sure. Could it change as part of the comprehensive plan process next year, whenever that gets rolling? Maybe. But I would, reviewing this case just for 1 week, I would need to think about it a lot more, because I'm thinking about all the folks that that put the time and effort into the whole design guidelines, for everything for the historic downtown. So if you are open to tabling the idea, so there can be some more dialogue, I could maybe be persuaded there, but otherwise I'm not really in favor of making a decision now, unfortunately. And so to me, the timing might not be right for me until the comprehensive planning process, if that were to change things. So kind of on the fence-ish, but more on the maybe not at this time right now. But Ed?
Yeah, so it's a handful of things. One, I agree certainly that things probably haven't played out in Old Town like I think the original vision. But a couple like factual things. One, when I look at the historic definition in the code, it does allow, the definition has living in it, and it does allow for residential, but I think you need an SUP. So I don't think it's the historic is specifically, and there's residential in the historic today, so that's not specifically not allowing for that. And then if you look at the plan, the historic plan already, like in the purple area, everybody can't see this, but where it has mixed use and office concentration, most of that is actually residential. So when I look at this sort of loosely applies to what's actually even there. And so like to, you know, to Chairman Haas's perspective, like I think if you overlay what's exactly on a comprehensive plan, I think you would I don't know what the percentage would be, but it wouldn't be the majority. I would say that a lot of that has changed from the original vision, and probably pretty quickly after this was developed, because it was, you know, most of the residential. So I think if we, so, you know, based on those two, I think it's a reasonable request. And I think if we don't consider it, since there has been a lot of changes to that don't match the, what the vision was, I struggle with that. And then just from a practical standpoint, like when you look behind it, there's residential right behind it on Heath. It looks pretty consistent if you look at if there were residential in the front. And then ultimately, if there are, you know, if people that buy these, and if they are ultimately residential without having a live work component, which it sounds like that's sort of happening. I'm not necessarily saying we should condone that, but I mean, what do we do at that point? Is we're going to send code enforcement in and move the people out? And so I think we have to be realistic of, you know, this is sort of how the market is dictating, you know, what the use of the property, and take that into consideration. But I think from, you know, from our standpoint, I mean, our job is not to design the property or it's really to look at what is presented and make a decision if it's you know, if we want to, you know, rezone and make an adjustment to the comprehensive plan, which I think it's a very reasonable request based on sort of the history of it, and then also how it's developed. That's my take.
Hold on a second, Kent. Matt, you had a comment?
Yeah, so Commissioner Mauer, so just as a reference, the handout that I had given was taken from the 2003 old Coppell master plan. And that was referenced in the 2011 comprehensive plan. So 2011 comprehensive plan updated some of the items from the old Coppell master plan. But you're absolutely right. It updated them because they changed. Plans evolve over time. But what we have been consistent with is this portion of South Coppell Road north of Bethel. We have been consistent in live work recommendations there due to the residential adjacency, and not, you know, going straight mixed use, just allowing for this kind of transitional use, as Chris mentioned.
Yeah,
that's it.
Okay, thank you. Kent?
Mr. Chairman, would it be all right if I ask the applicant?
Let's get first through our dialogue here. You know, thoughts first, and then we'll.
Well, I'll say that I like your proposal that we table this and ask the applicant to get back with staff to be more specific about, rather than an overarching major change to the zoning, that we pursue maybe some subtleties that would work for staff, would also work for the property owner in terms of making this project marketable.
Okay, thank you there. Sue?
So I just have a couple thoughts, and they're kind of weirdly random, but although I do have empathy for your financial issues and what's going on in the marketplace, I'm of the opinion just because there's other non-conforming uses around you doesn't mean we should give a non-conforming use and approve it for you. Just I don't think the non-conforming uses should influence our decision on what we're voting on tonight for, or asked to vote on. So at this time, I would support, if you would table it and work with staff. But if push came to shove and you want to vote for tonight, I would not be in support.
So, John?
Kind of similar here. This is my hood. I walk past or bike past this every single day. And I can say I'm extremely enthusiastic about the city's vision and the comprehensive plan and what they're trying to make happen. And I acknowledge it's a challenge, and it has been a challenge. I think it's a little premature, honestly, in my opinion. My fear here is if we grant this, or if we even make motions to allow residential, that could be the domino that tips every single property from Cooper all the way to Bethel and even all the way around the corner to want to do the exact same thing. And that will absolutely destroy the city's vision of what they want to do. So for many of the same reasons as Joanne here, I kind of have the same reluctance. I see what the city wants to do, and I appreciate that. And I think it's a little premature for its time. I just think this is murky water for the surrounding properties, I believe.
Okay, so for with regards to the tabling, thoughts on the tabling to further the dialogue or commission only here? Thoughts here? Do we want to table it or do we want to make a decision? And
I think our attorney just popped up and wanted to say something
Oh,
to us.
where is he?
But
Yeah,
All right.
I'm here, commissioners. One of the things, so that we got some clarity, Mr. Haas's suggestion and Mr. Hafman's agreement is that the idea that you want to satisfy the retail, or not the retail, but satisfy the business purpose by adding in a home occupation would satisfy the live work component of this. So if I owned the property and bought one of these from Mr. Collins, and I wanted to put my law office there, and my law office would not be necessarily open to the public, but what I would have to dedicate that first floor to my occupation, my home occupation. Is that what you were thinking? So that if you do table this, I think Matt and I would need some clarity as to what kind of regulation we would be bringing back to you to review. And so it may be more of a question than adding a whole lot of clarity, but I would like some clarity from the commission if you do table this to continue the dialogue. Is that what you had in mind?
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
And then whatever regulations we would think would be appropriate, we would obviously offer to you to satisfy that component.
Are there any specific questions toward the applicant from the commission? Because I've closed the public hearing. Okay. We have a question.
Sir, your name again? I
Chris
apologize.
Collins.
Chris? Yeah,
Yes.
Chris. So the idea that maybe we could figure out some kind of way to allow the home-based business to properly function within these spaces, is that solving your problem?
It very well could. Can I ask Matt a question? If I'm understanding the live work, the current approval for this PD, at least 50% of the first floor has to be used for business use. Is that not correct, Matt?
That's correct. Yes.
So if that requirement is there under the live work, if the home-based business, if something could be addressed specifically, and I know Bob's listening, if something could be specifically addressed about being open to the public, it would make a difference, a huge difference. Does that make sense?
Meaning, sir, that it doesn't have to be open to the public, or that
Correct. It doesn't have to be, because
Okay.
currently the law firm, if Bob was to move his law firm in, under the current code or interpretation of what this looks like, he has to be open to the public.
Mhm.
And so if Bob wanted to buy this 600 or 50%, our first floor is about 1,200 square foot. That's why I throw 600 out. but the approval in the National Building Code says 50% of the first floor has to be business. So it's already addressed in there. If we could just somehow interpret open to the public, it would make a difference in what we're trying to do.
Thank you, sir.
If that clarifies it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And then maybe my follow-on question to staff is, as we've seen from Mr. Collins' detailing of all the other people that are already violating this, is this even, would that even be enforceable by the city? Or are we just basically saying, could a buyer raise their hand and go, yeah, I run a business out of my house?
I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah.
delve into that for tonight, but
Yeah.
you might have lost some friends.
Well, Mr. Chairman, by way of kind of commenting on that, if I had, well, let's just say if my business was teaching music lessons, but it's not really offered to the public, it's offered by appointment only. You know, we have people that do teach music out of their home, and we've traditionally interpreted that to be a home-based occupation, home occupation. You know, would that be something, and I'm asking this kind of in a rhetorical question, is that what your aim is? I could put a piano there, dedicate that space to having a music room inside that first floor, maybe acoustically protected music room, and then give music lessons. It more looks like home occupation. It's not really open to walk-in business, but by appointment only. Is that what we were trying to? Is that the sweet spot we're trying to meet?
That was my idea, because I wanted to leave the option open that if it became a true work-live, that it was still there, that it could be then open to the public. It's not that it's closed permanently as a home-based business. I was kind of thinking of that perspective.
Well, the example that I gave you is kind of,
That kind of fits.
in my mind, it is kind of a hybrid, because they're still generating traffic, which to me, a home-based occupation really shouldn't generate traffic. But they do, and with tongue in cheek, we've allowed some of that to occur over the years.
Okay.
But, you know, it's not really a business that's traditional, open to the public. It's more done by word of mouth or through the website that they can go there and get a music lesson.
Okay, Bob, I've got a question for you. Okay, so you're talking about the hybrid home-based business. What if they had music lessons that they do virtually in that dedicated space?
Yeah, that would
Yeah, so
that
so that would be, you know, a dedicated space to do your business.
yes.
But that would not generate any true traffic. It would generate virtual traffic, but not any physical traffic.
Well, that's the kind of regulations that we would have to look at.
Yeah, so if say we do allow a home-based business, we need to be really careful on, you know, if the commission wants us to only have home-based businesses that have a little bit of traffic or no traffic, or we just need specific direction from you guys.
Yeah, and to assuage any concern, this is a PD, so we can tailor the uses to this PD.
Okay.
And still try to assist the
Okay.
developer and still meet what we desire to generate for Old Town.
Okay, Bob, thank you. So
Yes.
thank you, with the applicant patiently waiting here. Are you open to us tabling? For further
Absolutely.
dialogue?
I think we're on the
Okay.
right track.
Okay. Thank you very much. So back to the commission discussion. So, John, I'm very sensitive to your comment there. And mine is more from the historic perspective and all the planning as part of other committees that went into all this. You're there now. And I would be leaning on the denial side, but I'm open to this discussion if it doesn't, if we come up with a solution that doesn't violate and open Pandora's box to all other sites and things, that we're able to come up with something concrete, I'm okay with that, but I'll need a little help on what specifically we're looking at. But I just, plans are put together for a reason, right? Vision is established for a reason. I'm sensitive to your current plight too. The economics, right? It's just not there right now, but I just don't want to deconstruct something that has taken a long time to put together in, 30 minutes here. So discussion by the commission on to table or
Well,
not to table.
Chairman, so yeah, a couple comments on that. I think one, I think it's already been deconstructed based on like what's been built there. Two, I appreciate everyone's perspective on terms of the domino effect, but our responsibility is this particular property. And I think if you're going to consider residential, this one probably makes the most amount of sense because it's surrounded by residential behind it. And it's a kind of a logical extension. I think as you get closer to Old Town, that's where it makes much more sense to have, much more retail. But I think we have to be careful what we ask for, because I think if we want this to Old Town to be more vibrant and have more retail, part of the issue is the traffic. There's just limited traffic there. There's limited residential. There's limited people. This is probably an area where you would want more high density just for the sake of more people. You'd probably have more retail coming in if there's, you had more people. So I think in support of, and so what I'm saying is I think in supportive of the vision. So I don't want to discount like what's been done, because I think that there's, Old Town is one of my favorite things in Coppell, and I think there's, want to do things to help strengthen it that are consistent with the plan. And I think leaving property undeveloped is not moving in the right direction, and hoping for something to come there that's not going to generate. And I think it's a good idea in terms of the home-based business and so forth. But, if we're putting something in that ultimately is not really enforceable, I have a sort of a little bit of a philosophical issue with that. And then two, it potentially would be essentially single family just with a home-based business that we can't really enforce. And so I'm more in support of that in terms of having the property being developed and, kind of in the spirit. Ideally, yes, that'd be a good place to have the music teacher and so forth, and sort of the concept of it. But, I'm certainly in favor of, as opposed to denying it, tabling it, and trying to figure out a solution. But I think we all need to recognize that, this is why we're here, to make changes to this. This is what they're asking for. And so I think for us, if we had to stay within the confines of the confines of exactly how it's zoned and the comprehensive plan, then they wouldn't need us. And so that's sort of our role to say, okay, if we're going to change it, in this particular property, is this acceptable to change or not? And so, that's, I'm looking at, I appreciate all of the perspectives, but just wanted to follow up on some of those.
Okay.
Chairman. But yeah, I tend to feel more towards what Ed is saying here in terms of trying to find the right balance between respecting all of the labor and work and vision that the city has for this area. So that's why I think I'm in favor of tabling, because I think the applicant and Matt can figure this out with the right verbiage along with Bob's input and make this thing go. Whether it's enforceable or not, I don't really care. If I had my druthers, I'd go ahead and approve it for residential right now. That would be my druthers. Just as a practical matter for, the vision. I think the vision's outdated for that area specifically. That would be my feeling. But as a compromise, I think tabling it would be a good idea and let them work it out.
Any final thoughts over here to the right? Sue, John? Is there a motion to, I'll make a motion that we table, PB dash 213 R8-H, the zoning change request to allow staff and the applicant and our city attorney to find a solution that works and put in and add more definition to what's allowable under home-based work, what's not allowable, putting those details on that. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Is February suitable? Matt, is February suitable? We table to our February. Yeah, that would be the February 19th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, would you add into your motion also to that we would reopen the public hearing and continue it to that February date as well? And then
Okay.
that way we don't have to renotice it and we can receive additional input from the citizens without having the expense to renotice it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to amend my motion to table the PD-213R8-H to our February 19th meeting, and also to reopen the public hearing for final dialogue and discussion, but to add more definition to the home-based work definition, what's allowable, what would not be allowable. To consider this application, but at the same time, be very cognizant of the spirit of the vision, that original vision. So that's motion by Commissioner Haas. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Commissioner Hafman. Cammy, would you call the roll?
Please respond by saying aye or nay. So I call your name, Commissioner Doddmeyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blankenship.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
And Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 8 on the agenda, update on council items. We reviewed those in our work session. Matt, are there any other comments?
No, sir.
Other than we will not have a meeting in January. Okay, all righty. With that, we'll go to item 9. That's adjournment. The time is 7:42 and we are adjourned.
God, I hope someday I've got one like that.
Thanks for sticking around.